Hello and welcome back. In this session, we're going to pick up where we left off in part 1 of reporting in Sparx, where we were talking about various reports that must be, I want to say, should be delivered in any delivery, whether it's a short sprint or whether it's a large enterprise project with multiple releases. Report management is critical, and we're going to talk about or extend the discussion on various types of reports in Sparx Enterprise Architect and how to get to them. All right. So essentially what we have here in this is that whether you're doing Agile, Waterfall, or some hybrid release strategy, following a methodology, having access to your reports very quickly from anywhere within your project is critical. So in managing the software project, having the right reports ensures clarity, better communication, and smoother delivery. So let's just jump right into it instead of me talking about what we're going to talk about. All right. So let's have a quick recap here. So in the last session, we talked about the 7 reporting areas that you must have or should have in every project. Let's go to specification view and look at these. So essentially you have your deployment phase, design phase, and you have these various reports that are in each area. All right. And it's iterative. So it doesn't need to start with financials. It doesn't need to start with project or planning, although it should. But these are the type of reports that are very necessary in any delivery. All right. Then we talked about the reporting templates that Sparx provides you when you want to cover a particular area. And then what we did was we took the 7 areas and we started doing some tracing to the Sparx reports that are available. One thing we didn't talk about, but we've talked about in other sessions, are the canned reports that Sparx provides you that mine your Sparx data and produce reports. So we're going to touch on that in this session. So we're here in our fictitious project, and in here, the project management group, they have a reporting area, a document repository where they can get to their reports, right? So every project usually starts out with some sort of communication plan to the stakeholders, what the roles of the stakeholders are, communication methods, and so on. All right. And then from there, they have various phases of delivery, whether it's waterfall or it's iterative, that goes through and produces reports. And what are reports? Reports are basically a particular stakeholder responsible for a report writing out to the target audience on what is happening, what is taking place, what should take place. And so all of these reports are very necessary, from feasibility to the project, a proposal report. Hey, we're going to kick this off. These are the methodologies we're going to use, all the way through to the end, especially when we get into postmortem or causal analysis reports, which we will touch on in this area. And when I say touch on in part 3, we'll dive down a little bit deeper, right? So you have to have a reporting strategy. So how do you get started? First off, every effort should have a document repository, whether they're delivery documents or whether they're development documents, but you should have a document repository. And in that repository is where you're going to manage your reports. Now, reporting for the most part in any company, in any shop, is complete, repeatable, and reuse of reports and processes and practices. All right. So you don't need to start from scratch every time you kick off an effort. Instead, what you can do is you can bring in your reports during your kickoff or at the start, as soon as you get the feasibility report in and you get some sort of funding to get started. So we're in a blank work area here. We have a diagram that's simply called report demo. And what we're going to do is we're going to import our report templates. So every project has or must have a document repository, all right, where they keep their reports. And quick access to those reports. In this particular case, these are laid out by phase, all the way down to delivery, maintenance, and financial reporting. And for the most part, reports are repeatable, right? So you don't have to start from scratch each time you start a delivery exercise. So for this demonstration, we're in a blank project, or blank diagram, I should say, within our learning project. And we're going to import this XML file that contains our reporting templates. All right. So you've all learned how to use XMI to bring in packages that you want to reuse or use, right? So basically what we're doing is we're browsing for the project document templates in our shared repository for this fictitious project. Let's go ahead and hit open, and we're going to strip GUIDs because we don't want to use the same global unique IDs as the template. All right. So I would strip GUIDs when you're bringing this in because you want completely separated, isolated elements, right? We're going to baseline the package after import. You've all learned about baselining, so this should be simple. Let's go ahead and select import, and it is importing. It's because we asked, hey, baseline once it comes in. We're going to start at 0, 1, and then we can put whatever we want in notes. I'm just going to leave the default here, and now this is baseline. All right, so let's go ahead and close, and let's look at the reports that we brought in. Right. So we brought in these report templates. They're blank, but they have content to help the writer reuse and follow the same methodologies and practices on what information needs to be reported on. So each one of these reports is blank. It's laid out in a manner in which the company or the shop wants to report in these subject areas. So in this project, the reporting strategy is pretty simple. It's reuse our template, follow our practices and methodologies, have a communication plan so that the stakeholders understand what their roles and responsibilities are, and then also include, well, how are we going to kick off? Where are reports? How do we get to reports? And so on. Many of the reports that you generate may be under regulatory constraints and need to be managed within a document management repository. Now, Sparx can be that document management repository, but be very careful when you're setting that up and follow all the guidelines and rules that are necessary for that. The reports and the regulations that I grew up with were Sarbanes-Oxley's Act of 2002. And this basically came about from the Enron fiasco. And these reports, you needed to be in compliance or you were going to be hit with huge fines and other legal matters. So we're going to talk a little bit about locking down reports, taking snapshots of reports, ensuring that you're having the right controls in place, and so on. So let's just continue. So let's get into report management. All right. So there are various types of reports in Sparx. There are report templates for documents, and there are templates for both printed and stored. So we go over your resources. Again, Sparx provides a lot of different canned reports that mine your data and bring them up. And then we can create our own custom reports to achieve any objective or reporting commitment that we've made within our project delivery. Now, I don't recommend managing your reports. When I say managing, doing edits and versioning of reports in Sparx, but I'll leave that up to each one of you. Instead, what I do is we have a document repository that we can get to for reports. And in this, we keep all of our reports. Some of these are in special folders that have security access, and basically access the reports here and then produce copies of these reports within our project instance, I want to say namespace for reports. So here's the feasibility study that took place before this project started, and we should be able to find feasibility. In our case, it's right here. We'll go ahead and open it. And in this case, this is the report within our document repository that allows users to get to the feasibility study for this particular project and or release. Now, there's a couple of ways that you can make it easy for stakeholders to get to the reports. Of course, you could put copy the report into here if you aren't managing or write it in here, or you could add in a hyperlink. And in this case, it's very simple. We're going to hit the space bar. We're going to go to common elements, and you go down here and add a hyperlink. I'm not going to do that because I've already done it. And then you can place it near or in the report element so that people can launch the report, the docx Word report, right into Sparx. This has been converted in Sparx to the original Word document. The other way is using model library. So when you're in Start, you can go to model library, and I will do an in-depth on model library. I've talked a lot about it, but when I click this right now, it launches in the upper right for me. And down here, we have all of the shared artifacts, documents, and so on. We go down here to project reports. I could certainly start typing in feasibility, find, then it will find it right for me. And now if I launch this, what this is doing is launching the report in Microsoft Word. So here we have the feasibility study launched from the model library and launching Word directly. And again, your document management repository is going to have controls in place that protect your artifacts, put them under regulatory constraints if necessary, and so on. So there's multiple ways to access your reports in real time and make sure that you have the right controls over your reports right from Sparx Enterprise Architect. Next, I want to talk about the templates that Sparx provides, the static reports that you might create, and the dynamic reports that are generated from your database, all right, your Sparx database. So let's open up the risk assessment report. So in this particular case, this is the layout from a template. It's populated. And then let's look at, we're going to go back over to, let me close this. Oh, I want to keep that open, darn it. Let's just add in a document. So there's a couple of ways to do that. One over in the toolbox. If you go down to documents, right here, you can bring in a document just like that, or you can hit the space bar. You can go down to documents in the quick access menu, choose document. There you go, right? It's the exact same thing, right? So what we're going to do on this one is we're going to double click on it. We get to choose a template. So we're going to go in here. We're going to roll down past the customs into the canned ones that Sparx provide, and here's a risk plan, right? So what I'm going to do is just hit OK, and it populates it. You put your logo in, version it, all that fun stuff, and then down here, it tells you what the risk plan should include, and then you just come in and populate it, all right? That's a little bit different layout than what we statically do. And again, I do this in Word, and then I copy it in so that I could use it as an element in Sparx, but these are the different layouts. I'm going to go ahead and close this. I'll come back later on and clean this up. I don't need this. All right, so let me get these out of the way and I will deal with them later. So what we're going to do next is we're going to look at requirement specification. So let's open this one up, and then you can see this is the report layout that I populated, or I should say, yes, I populated this, but this is the layout. You get the gist. So what we're going to do now is we're going to look for, and let me use that other element since I didn't do that. Let me bring this one over. We're going to double click it. We get a choice here, and we're going to look for requirements. And the only thing I see in here is requirements approval. That's kind of cool. So gives us a template to populate about the requirements review and approval, right? Now, requirements, the way requirements are done in the project is using dynamic. All right. So we have this form, which I showed you a moment ago, and then we have a report we can generate from our actual requirements. So we go into requirements management. Let's just choose business requirements. And here we go. This is the cover page, and the requirements are in their own namespace. What we're going to do now on this packager namespace is we're going to hit function key 8, bring up the document generator dialog box. We're going to select a template, and we're going to use requirements details, requirements. Did I go too far? I went too far. Requirement details. We're going to accept the name. We're going to go into our shared repository. We're going to hit save. It already exists. We're going to hit OK, and then we're going to generate. All right. So this is generating this document right now, going through the Sparx database, and there we go. We're going to view it. So in this case, this is what the requirement specification looks like, right? So what we're going to do, what we can do very quickly if we did not build it into our template, is that we can use the template that Sparx has provided for us. So we go back over here. We're going to hit Control A. We're going to copy. We're going to go over here, and somewhere in here at any particular point, we can put an approval, and I'm going to do it at the very top right here. And now I have the approval that Sparx generates, and then I have the dynamic report. I'm going to hit save, and there we go. So you can mix the templates that Sparx provides for you with the dynamic templates that Sparx provides for you if you don't want to build this approval sheet at the top of your template. So if I go back in here and I hit function key 8, I can actually look at any template. This is canned, right? I'm going to open it. I can't edit these, right? There's no dialog box. I can't do anything. I can copy this and create my own custom template for reporting, but that's a different session. I'll try to include the link below in this description. So that's dynamic versus static, and how you can blend what Sparx provides for you within your project delivery. All right. So let's see here. What else do we want to talk about? Oh yeah. What I said in the beginning of the video, I want to talk about postmortem, closure, or project closure report, or what I refer to as the causal analysis. And we're going to talk about these next. So let's go ahead and open postmortem, right? So this is basically, hey, the project's over, and this is the analysis that we have from the closure. It should lead all the way up to process improvement. All right. So you don't do a report, I should say, at the end of the project. Doing causal analysis. That's looking at, okay, what's working and what's not working. You do it from the very beginning of the project. So here's a static template that we populate for postmortem or project closure, right? However, if we roll back over here, and let's bring in another document. I'm going to use this method, space, documents, bring in a blank one. I'm not going to name it at this particular point. I'm going to open it, and let's look at the templates that Sparx provides. So these are my custom templates. Let's go through here. So defect audit, well, that's not one, but it's part of it. You should be doing a defect audit on all defects. Release plan, well, that's part of it. That's really focused on release, and causal analysis is based on everything that's taking place. But how do you pull that all together? So I'm going to go ahead and close this, cancel. There we go. We're going to close this. And what we're going to do is go back to how do you create this static report that has everything in it using your dynamic reporting tool, right from your database. Well, we're not going to cover that in this session, but let's talk about what causal analysis is, whether you're using this template or you're using a template that I've used over my years. So I've included an example. Let's go ahead and open it. And it is a PDF file. And basically you can see this is a closure report that's from the very beginning. Now it's dated here. I told you I've been doing this for years. Here's an example. So you have your general information, your objectives, project duration. And so you're tracking your project as it's going through. Risk management, you're putting your risks in, the size of the effort, number of units, medium units. If you're into function point analysis, you're putting in your complexity around your estimating and so on, and what you're building that from, the output languages you may be using as you're going through. Here you can see function point size, all of this. Is this in Sparx? No, it's not. It's not in Sparx. So you generate this outside, but there is a way to bring data in from Sparx. Here's your defect management. So yes, you actually plan for defects. So that's these two columns here. And then what you actually do, and then your percent deviation that you're going through it, right? Distribution of severity of these defects as they're going through, and so on, all the way down to your causal analysis, your deviations, explaining the reasons for deviations from above as you're collecting it, and then an overview conclusion of your report, including process improvement and other things like that. So this is, to me, a real closure report or causal analysis report versus what this may be post-mortem, right? So most of our clients choose to use this format as they're going through. They're unable to do planning. We're working with them to teach them how to use analytics, use BI, business intelligence, even AI to predict what's going through. But again, that's more advanced, and we'll cover that in later sessions in the channel. Now, this is what a typical industry standard causal analysis report, pretty similar problem description. This is one that we may populate at the bug level, at the issue. So we have an issue, depending on the priority and the severity of the issue, we'll go through and we'll populate this report, which would be referenced in the causal analysis report that's taking place. So in Sparx, when you have a defect, there is a way to deal with and manage that defect all the way through resolution. And that data can be parsed out of the SQL database and made available to your reports. Not necessarily the static reports that are here, but in the dynamic reports that you build over here and in custom templates. And again, we'll get into that in a later session in this channel. All right, let's wrap up. Thanks very much for watching this video. My colleagues asked me to make this a little bit longer and include more examples. So how are you doing reporting? Are you using Sparx for reporting? And I'd like to know what reports that you use that maybe aren't in this mandatory list of reports that we've talked about through these sessions. So basically, you need to understand how to be successful, and reporting and analytics is the only way to do that, right? And I walk into a lot of shops where they don't do enough reporting and they don't do enough planning, and then they wonder why they fall short, right? In the next session, what we're going to do is we're going to look at the Gantt analysis, the allocation of work as we're going through this. So when we're looking at reports and doing things that are necessary, when you're doing, like we're parsing this data right here, we're going into switch views. You've learned this in the channel, and we're going to Gantt view. So in this particular case, you're able to assign resources, track their progress. They can come in and put notes in here on what's taking place. Like for instance, in Sparx, you have a history. They can go through, start, and plan amount of effort going into it, actual amount of effort. And then hopefully if they deviate from the actual, that you're capturing why. What was the reason for it? And then you're using that intelligence for your closure report, your lessons learned, your causal analysis, post-mortem, whatever cool names that you want to use on it. So we'll cover that in the next session. We'll also dive into a little bit more of analytics versus reporting. Reporting is static, and it's just showing where you are at a particular time. So you publish a report, you version it, it's a snapshot at time, then you version that report if you're doing updates, and you're able to track the differences between those reports. So I look forward to getting in the next session with you. And until then, happy modeling.